Firstly, I would like to define barriers. Barriers are actually different elements that try to stop the smooth flow of communication. Means they may hamper the flow of effective communication. Such elements or such things or such factors are called barriers to communication. These barriers may come from sender or receiver or other circumstances, and if we want to become a good communicator, we have to avoid them because they may confuse the listener or reader and they may create misunderstanding. So I will read the first slide for you. Barriers to communication can be classified as follows on the basis of the stage of communication process during which they arise. First type of barriers are sender oriented barriers, means they are related to sender. They may be lack of planning on the part of sender, lack of clarity about the purpose of communication, improper choice of words, means improper language, wrong choice of channel or medium. Then receiver oriented barriers, means barriers that are related to receiver, means receiver is a poor listener or he is not having interest in the communication. Then receiver oriented barriers arise. Then comes channel oriented barriers, means barriers related to medium. They may be noise, wrong selection of medium, etc. So anything that hinders or blocks the way of communication at any level or at any stage is a barrier to communication, and these barriers make communication ineffective, and such type of ineffective communication is called miscommunication. So barriers to communication can also be defined as the aspects or conditions or elements or factors that interfere with effective exchange of ideas or thoughts. So these barriers are the sources of difficulty in communication process because they may confuse the listener or reader and create misunderstanding. They may sometimes lead to communication breakdown. Now I will discuss different types of barriers. First is improper encoding, second is bypassing, then third is frame of reference, fourth is physical barrier, then psychological barriers, and last barrier is cultural barrier. Firstly, uh, first barrier to communication is improper encoding. Improper encoding means to use improper language, improper signs, and improper level of language. So this is the process of communication which leads to confusion and misunderstanding. While encoding his message, the sender makes improper choices of symbols which the receiver is unable to understand. Actually, messages should be presented in a familiar language. The sender must consider the knowledge of receiver about the language that he is going to use. If the receiver is not able to understand the sender's language, a communication breakdown will occur. So improper encoding means to use improper language, improper vocabulary, improper signs, and improper level of knowledge. Bypassing. Bypassing actually they refer to the symbols or words that have different meanings to different people. When the sender and receiver of the message have different meanings to the same word in their minds, then confusion may arise. Bypassing is actually misunderstanding resulting from missed meanings because of the use of abstract words and phrases on which both sender and receiver don't agree. Means bypassing is actually misunderstanding which arises when sender and receiver have different meanings to the same word. If we want to have good communication, then sender and receiver must have same meaning of the word that is used in the communication. Otherwise, Otherwise, miscommunication will occur. A person's age, education, culture, background, experience influence the language that he uses in communication, and this influence causes miscommunication. To avoid this misunderstanding or miscommunication, the sender must use familiar words. He should consider the level of knowledge, experience, or background of listener or receiver. And I would say that he must use denotative words. Denotative words means words having dictionary meanings or literal meanings, or the meanings that are widely known. He should not use connotative meanings. Connotative meanings or connotative words are the um, suggestive meanings, you can say, means meanings assigned by ourselves. So if we want to avoid bypassing in communication, we must use denotative words, means words having proper dictionary meanings, means we should use words in denotative sense, means we should use words in the senses or in the meanings that are present in the dictionaries. We should not use suggestive meanings. Okay, I'm going to read this slide for you. Bypassing. Bypassing refers to symbols or words having different meanings to different people. It leads the communication to misunderstanding. A person's age, education, and cultural background influences the language uh, that is used during the communication. Sender should use denotative words instead of connotative words. Okay, now I will discuss. Now I am going to discuss another barrier to communication, and that is frame of reference. Frame of reference means actually a system of assumptions or philosophy. Every person is unique, every person is different, every person is having different parentage, different environment, different experiences, etc. Every person develops different system of assumption or philosophy, and this difference in philosophy or beliefs can hinder the way of communication. If we want to have good communication, we must consider other person's frame of reference, and it is our weakness when we view other within our frame of reference. So we must consider other person's uniqueness or difference. This uniqueness is called frame of reference. Now I am going to discuss different physical barriers. Physical barriers include apparent environmental factors like noise, distance, distraction, and interference, and these factors obstruct smooth flow of communication. The noise of other people or moving traffic or distance between the sender and receiver or some other interferences, etc. And these things prove barriers in communication and can easily disrupt communication. If we want to have successful communication, then we must remove all these physical barriers. Now I am going to discuss psychological and emotional barriers. Any psychological or emotional disorder or disturbance can prove to be a barrier to effective communication because it leads to the lack of interest and concentration. Feelings of sadness, fear, anger, anxiety, or excitement affect one's reception of the message. So, when a person is emotionally disturbed, he would not be able to focus and concentrate. Communication is a purposeful activity which demands attentiveness and willing mind. Before taking part in communication process, we must assure that we are not emotionally charged. Emotionally charged means very excited. and because in this way we will find it very difficult to concentrate on the content of the message. Psychological barriers can prove to be the sources of blockage in communication process, and we must try to overcome or control them. Now I am going to discuss cultural barriers. Culture can also prove to be a barrier to communication, means it can hinder the way of communication. Culture is an umbrella term. It includes so many factors like language, religion, customs, habits, attitudes, dressing, dietary habits, architecture, etc. When the listener and the speaker have same culture, then communication becomes very easy and comfortable. But when these two parties have different cultures, then miscommunication may occur because they may have different language, they may have different customs, they may have different traditions, they may have different ways of greeting, etc. Culture is also a great barrier to communication. Rules. So we can see that in different cultures, language, values, architecture, dressing, um, or different, you can say, beliefs, attitudes are different. So we assign different meanings to same, you can say, actions or same words. So this type of barrier is very common when we communicate with the people of other cultures. Now I am going to discuss different ways to overcome barriers to communication. To overcome physical barriers, we can have appropriate seating arrangement. Then make it very sure that you can be seen and you can be listened by other person. Means ensure visibility and audibility. Then environmental comfort, means the environment must be very comfortable. Uh, then it should not have any distraction means noise, any interference, etc. Then to control semantic barriers, we must use simple language, uh, simple or familiar language. We can use different symbols and charts to make our point clear, and we must develop the habit of listening and giving positive and constructive feedback.